Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the pig's heart, and in order to do that, we're going to actually take the heart out of the pig. So I'm going to move away the lungs here, and I want to make sure that when I start cutting blood vessels from my pig, that I am cutting as far away as possible from these different vessels. And I'm going to use my probe to kind of pick away at the tissue. It would be better if I had my pointy probe, but I'm not quite sure what I did with it. So I'm going to use this probe, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut away at the vessels, and I'm going to cut away at them kind of far from the pig's heart because I want to keep as many of these vessels attached as I possibly can, because the more I keep attached, the better I am. Now, the stuff that's going to be kind of hard to cut through is the latex, so don't worry about that. You're not cutting anything big and important away from your pig, so don't get grossed out by that. That's just latex. That's just the artificial stuff that's in there so that you can see the arteries and the veins. Remember that this tissue right here that I'm going to go ahead and snip away, this is the pericardium. That's the tissue that is around the heart, and it can kind of block your view of things, and I'm taking a little thymus off with it as well. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that goes in the garbage later, not into the sink, because I definitely don't want that clogging up the sink. So I'm going to get as far away as I can from the heart as I cut these blood vessels, because I definitely want to be able to see as much as possible when I take these things, when I take the heart out of the pig and I want to analyze the heart. Okay, so let's take a look at the pig's heart here. Remember that this is the pig's left and right, not your left and right. So here we have the right atrium, then we have the right ventricle. Here's the left atrium and the left ventricle. Right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Going down the center here, we have the coronary arteries and veins. And the coronary arteries and veins are what supply blood for the heart muscles themselves, because those muscle cells have to do a lot of work, so they need their own blood supply. Coming across the top, we have the pulmonary arch, and the pulmonary arch is ultimately going to lead into the pulmonary arteries. As we sort of move to the top, you can see the aorta here, and when you get a little bit closer and you look in, you can see that the aorta is actually coming from down inside where that left ventricle is. So this one is the aorta and this one is the pulmonary arch. If I turn the heart around so that we're looking at it from the back side, here is the cranial vena cava, here is the caudal vena cava. Cranial vena cava, caudal vena cava. And you can see I did not do a very good job of dissecting here. This is where our pulmonary veins were, but I didn't really do a great job getting them out. So pulmonary veins were here. So again, right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle, coronary arteries and veins, pulmonary arch, aorta, cranial vena cava, caudal vena cava, pulmonary veins. Okay, now, because I love you guys so much, I'm going to let you into my heart. I've actually cut this heart in half, and I'm going to flip it to open it up. Now, you can see that some kind of gross, gooey stuff did come out. Relax, it's not that big of a deal. But notice up here, this is where the atria are. They're very small, but lots of blood can get into them. Look at how little space there is in the ventricles versus how much muscle there is in the ventricles. That muscle is super huge for squeezing that blood out through those blood vessels that we were looking at before. So tons of muscle in the ventricles down here, not as much muscle in the atria, because the ventricles are the ones that are doing the super huge amounts of squeezing. Now in the pig, we're going to look for the descending aorta and the caudal vena cava actually inside the pig. So again, I'm going to use my probe to pick away at tissue so that I can see everything that I need to be able to see, because if you can't see it, then it's not useful to you. So this big white tube here is the descending aorta. That is there and easy to see, and if you miss it, I don't even know what to say. So this is the descending aorta. The caudal vena cava is this blue tube behind the aorta. Here's the caudal vena cava right here, this blue tube back here. And then, of course, we have the esophagus here that we saw earlier in the digestive system lab.